Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with your host, this very reluctant prophet. You know, I don't like what I have to say. That don't matter, because I gotta say it. If I don't say it, who will? We live in strange times, and so we need to get to the bottom of why these times are so very strange. So, the greatest unsolved mystery to be explained today is how society writ large has come to believe in mutually exclusive propositions. Underlying these contradicting narratives is the belief that life is a zero-sum game. This idea has undermined every institution which exists to protect our liberties and our common law legal system. As a result, radical pathological ideas have infected the thinking of the vast majority of those holding public office, of those running our bureaucracies, as well as those who are administering our schools and universities. The political and administrative class have demonstrated a willingness to go to almost any lengths in redistributing and reallocating resources while waging war on what just yesterday was considered even by them to be normative. Remember their famous phrase during COVID lockdowns of the new normal. Well, of course, normal isn't new. Normality is something developed over a great long period of time. They do this despite the negative impact on the economy, the middle class, and the poor and the dispossessed. Worse, they do so in such a manner which almost always benefits them and their powerful allies, who are invariably enemies of democracy, like the CCP. The elite appear to be completely willing to sacrifice the most vulnerable among us on the pagan altar of what their ideology falsely calls progress. And foremost among this type of individual are the globalist climate catastrophizing elite who hate Dr. Jordan B. Peterson more than they even hate Donald Trump. In a vodcast entitled Jordan Peterson Just Exposed the Whole Damn Thing, Dr. Peterson lays out in brutal detail what I came to realize in Norway a decade ago. These ideologically possessed fools are creating the very problems they have the unmitigated hubris to claim that only they can solve. But it doesn't end there. They do so while claiming humanity is a blight on the planet. These neo-Marxists are Malthusians who use the democratic process to usher in total government control of humanity, yet have the gall to deny that they're Marxists, while claiming that destroying democracy is in fact democratic. I know them. I've dined with them. I've listened to them moralize while telling me to my face that their illiberal authoritarianism was progress. Yet I give them this. They believe in the veracity and sanctity of their own full moralizing, in spite of the fact of the glaring contradictions inherent in it. These people can hold two or more mutually exclusive propositions in their minds simultaneously without having their brains explode from cognitive dissonance. So you can watch the Peterson's video on climate catastrophizing at the link contained in the vlog and podcast, and blog and vodcast, I should say. In summation, we are living in a society which never questions anything too deeply, ignores contradictions in the new orthodoxy of their social engineering narrative, which has been created by an elite class who look out only for themselves, while mischaracterizing those of us who can provide factual evidence that they are lying to return us to economic servitude, moral turpitude, and spiritual apostasy. A few days ago, Britain's Spectator magazine did a tremendous job of summing up all the intrigue, machinations, politics, and noise surrounding Chinese interference in Canadian elections, and it came to a remarkable conclusion. There are those who bemoan declining trust in our leaders. Here we see the damage that can be done by a leader who does not trust the public, wrote their correspondent Sam Dunning. Justin Trudeau did not trust Canadians to know that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, may have forked out $1 million in an effort to gain his affection. That Canadian security officials believe a serving MP is a tool of Beijing, or that Canadian voters of Chinese descent feel intimidated by the CCP in their own country, or that visiting Chinese students were allegedly told by the Chinese embassy to go out and campaign for Trudeau's party or be sent home for punishment. When was the last time you used the term Big Brother or thought police? Did you know that both phrases come directly from George Orwell's classic dystopian novel, 1984? Orwell's dark cautionary tale, published in 1949, about the dangers of totalitarianism, government surveillance, and censorship left a profound mark on the English language. As Orwell introduced readers to new words and phrases to help him describe the anti-utopia of Oceania, where the story is centered. Many of these terms are still commonly used today. So the following is a compilation of Orwell's short vocabulary from his novel 1984, a cheat sheet, if you will, to jog your memory hole from the high school literature you were likely made to read, as I was. Big Brother, the personification of the unseen monolithic leader of the party of Oceania. Doublethink, the act of simultaneously accepting two mutually contradictory beliefs as correct. According to Winston Smith, the protagonist of 1984, doublethink is to know and not to know. To be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. To hold simultaneously two opinions which canceled out, knowing them to be contradictory, or believing in both of them. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while laying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible. I've got a little dog going into corners here. Solshin, come out. Yes. You want to say hi to the folks? Yes. You're a sneaky little sneaker. Well, Daddy will walk you after the video. I've got to get back to reading. You be a good boy. To hold simultaneously two opinions which canceled out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in them both. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while laying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy. To forget whatever was necessary to forget, then draw it back into memory again at the moment when it was needed, and then promptly to forget it again. And above all, to apply the same process to the process itself. That was the ultimate subtlety. Consciously to induce unconsciousness, and then, once again, to be unconscious of the act of hypnosis you had just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involved the use of doublethink. For examples of doublethink used throughout 1984 include the slogans, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, 2 + 2 = 5, or in this postmodern society, boys are girls and girls are boys. And there is no such thing as women. This is absolutely Orwellian. Memory hole, a small chute leading to a large incinerator, anything that needed to be wiped from the public record Embarrassing documents, photographs, transcripts would be sent into the memory hole. You see this right now with Trudeau refusing to hold a public inquiry about the involvement of the CCP in the Canadian government. As a clerk in the records department of the Ministry of Truth, Winston Smith often has to throw things into the memory hole to revise history and keep current with ever-evolving party dogma. Newspeak, a purposely ambiguous and confusing language with restricted grammar and limited vocabulary used in Oceania, according to Orwell, to diminish the range of thought. For example, in Newspeak, the term plus good had replaced words better and great. Thinkpole, a Newspeak word to describe the secret police of Oceania, who are responsible for the detection, prosecution, and elimination of unspoken beliefs and doubts that contradict the party. They use audio-visual surveillance via the telescreens and offender profiling to monitor the populace. And you see that we even have legislation before Parliament now about further controlling the internet and identifying hate speech. They're using Orwell as a manual. Unperson, someone whose existence has been excised from the public and private memory in Oceania. Unpersoning is something I am altogether too familiar with. Many of my old acquaintances from the roots music scene will no longer have anything to do with me, given my outspoken opposition to radical ideologies that falsely pass themselves off as being liberal. Since I am a classical liberal in the English sense, I find the mischaracterization of a word which literally means liberty to be one of the most Orwellian aspects of postmodern society. Hashtag Justin Trudeau. I found a scripture perfectly defining your reign of terror from Proverbs, chapter 29, verses 1 through 4. Warnings and instructions. A man who hardens his neck after much reproof will suddenly be broken beyond remedy. When the righteous increase, the people rejoice, but when a wicked man rules, people groan. A man who loves wisdom makes his father glad, but he who keeps company with whores wastes his wealth. The king gives stability to the land by justice, but a man who takes bribes overthrows it. And that's exactly what you're doing, Trudeau. You're overthrowing the Canadian way of life. God judge you. And Trudeau has taken millions of bribes from the Chinese Communist Party, whose very ideology stands in diametric opposition to every foundational principle upon which the Canadian government was intended to be founded. May God himself vindicate this broken nation and judge Trudeau for his godless doublespeak, where he expects the Canadian people to believe in mutually contradictory things. I hope these are words to think and pray about. I know I do. I get up in the middle of the night to lament the condition of this nation. God bless you. Have a great day.